enough now. Let's get it.
That's right. That's right. Now, this brother here, man, I've known this guy, and he's been working in the community for over 20 plus years. Before, let me do a formal introduction of this guy. So, this is Lamar Jackson. He's a 20-year workforce and youth development professional, which means he knows what he's talking about, who is from San Diego and is currently serving as an outreach coordinator for San Diego Workforce Partnership. His work includes positioning solutions for job seekers and business owners throughout San Diego County. Before starting his career in the nonprofit industry, Mr. Jackson studied community youth development at Springfield College and marketing and international business at Alliant International University. I would go through the whole spiel with you, but hey, there's a lot I want to talk about, so we want to get to it. So Lamar, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. You made me sound really responsible out here, like I'm an adult, right?
Well,
we all got to grow up sometime.
When I first met you, you was working at the teen center. That's just like 2009-ish, 10-ish or so.
Right about, I was actually, as executive director over there at the time.
In here in San Diego, in Southeast San Diego, and Southeastern San Diego, let me get that clear. And you've been doing a lot of great things in the community, and one of the reasons why you came on the show is we had a really great show last week with Miss Brisa Johnson, and she talked about some of the ills that are going on with employment here when it comes to blacks in San Diego and nationally as well. And, talking with you, we want to continue on that conversation because our job is to help people. Clinton and I's job is to help people get into homes. I want to get the money to buy a home. He wants to help them find the home that they're looking for. That's what we're trying to do. But we know before they could become a homeowner, there's so many other things that they have to get right.
Right.
And one of those things they have to get right is the career, in addition to finding the right spouse. We believe, other than most important decision is choosing God in your life, and after that is the career you choose and the person you marry.
Okay.
And so we want to talk about the career aspect, and that's why we have Brisa come on, and that's why we have you on. And, there was a lot of things that you wanted to add on to last week's conversation. So thank you for joining our show.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me. So, so in light of your question, the lead in there, my answer to that is in three sections. Okay, they really give it some context. It's the real ugly truth about what's going on right now in real context. Essentially the things that are concerning me about in relation to what we see the ugly problems are, and what we're kind of not doing that we should be doing, and then the good. There are definitely a breadth of resources and opportunities that I definitely want to spend most of the time talking about that, because we got, we got a lot of the ugly side of it, but there is some context to that I want to bring to it. One of those things is this, is that national employment numbers being what they are, it's kind of hard to use it as a universal catch-all that it applies to everyone all over the place, right? There is some differences there, right? But fundamentally, you can say that the effects of I don't want to get into a whole CRT discussion, but there is something to the effect of institutional racism. There is that. And typically how that plays out when we talk about workforce development, and when we're talking about, earning enough money to get into the market to buy a home. Regardless of your education, this is one of the ways that institutional racism plays out, right? Across the country, okay? I think the unemployment figures nationally are somewhere in a range of like 5 or 6% nationally, okay? I think in San Diego, even after the pandemic, we're hovering around like maybe 6.5 or something like that, whatever the latest numbers are, right? Okay. Automatically, this is the real ugly part. Automatically, you can just write in that we as African Americans are experiencing double that rate. So if it's 6.5 locally or nationally, we're about at double, 12, 13%, okay? If that was the national average, the president would be on the television saying we have all these initiatives in place because employment is a crisis right now. That's a legitimate thing. What is more concerning are the individuals that are, working poor, Okay, you're working just to get enough money to basically afford to pay your bills, right?
Right.
It's not much there. You're saving to buy a house. You're probably in some debt. There's a lot of financial disparaging things that are happening. That number generally is double whatever your unemployment rate is. So for the mainstream population, if the unemployment rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 6.5%, the underemployment rate is about double for mainstream.
Mm.
Same math applies when you talk about us as African Americans. If we're at 13, okay, then double of us are experiencing underemployment. That pretty much 30,000 feet in the air view captures what you see, okay, across our communities all across the country. All right. What's unique, though, about us here in San Diego is that being that, one, California, our wage scales because of the cost of living are a lot higher than other parts of the country. So there is a roadmap out as opposed to some other parts where they're still paying people $8.75 an hour, $8.25 an hour, starting wage, right?
What's the minimum wage here? Like $15 an hour?
Yeah,
now?
I think it's 15 now.
Yeah, there's a movement towards 18, okay? And that's like the highest in the country right now,
Right.
okay? So there's a pathway out there. I already know people already, got their fingers ready to go. Well, but housing is so expensive. Look, one of the things you can do, and I'm pretty sure you guys, are experienced with this as well as real estate people, there's deals you can find, okay? What's more concerning to me, though, is that we are not, to scale, moving ourselves towards the types of professions and positions that are going to afford us the type of lifestyle we want to live in this part of the country.
Aha. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, and I understood that like we didn't get that far last week because like I said, there's not a lot of people that look like us that are in this profession. Let me just say that right now. There's about
In the workforce.
there's not a lot. There's not a lot. It's mostly predominantly Latino, Caucasian. There's a huge amount of Asians in the field as well. And what you see, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation, is because when a lot of their members of their community are represented in that field, you see collectively their community's incomes go up.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And that's because, when they know better as their community members, get the training and the expertise, they're able to plug that into their community. And you see the rising tide raises everybody, right?
Right.
If there's not a lot of African Americans in the field, okay, then a lot of that information is not being transmitted on our community. So then we're left to pretty much figure it out ourselves, right? And what happens is, and I always have a saying, when it's someone's job to help you get somewhere, you tend to get there a lot better than if you're trying to figure it out yourself, okay?
That's very true.
Right.
So there have been a huge amount of investments and initiatives specifically to make people's jobs to get, let's say, Asians into the tech field, or to get Latinos into certain professions, or to get even the mainstream populations into certain professions. What's unique in San Diego, and this is the number one thing I want to express, is we have the rare opportunity right now with a program that I'm actually connected to called the Hire Program here in San Diego. It's a program specifically targeting African Americans to help them get into the employment arenas with the idea of not just starting there, but then moving up into very targeted professions that are going to get you the lifestyle you want in San Diego.
Right. So that's a great way to actually talk about our program and also go on this topic, because one of the topics that we see, not only just in San Diego, but among African American males, that is, because most of when we talk about employment, we're not talking about African Americans in the whole. We're talking about males now, because we
Correct.
are the ones who are actually the unemployed and paid. I mean, when we talk about professions, we pay the lowest. We're talking about mobility, right? Mobility in the job market, right? Because we see, because what I'm seeing when I look at number one, we're not, when it comes to, you just mentioned different races, when it comes to the different races and education, we're like on par, right? Because it seems like we're not, but we are,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
we're looking at just 1%, 2% off when it comes to different degrees, different levels of education, right?
Yep.
What we're seeing is that income-wise,
Correct.
right?
The
'Cause
payoff.
yeah. So
Yep.
what is that? What is causing that problem? Because of the main thing. Because that I think it's an amazing program. You know. So what is causing the problem of mobility? Because now we're looking at, okay, your state. When a black or an African American male enters the job market, he stays at one level for a while,
That is correct. Yep.
right? So what is causing that, and how can we change that?
Okay, so there's two main causes that are happening. The one side, going back to something I referenced earlier in the conversation, is there is a legitimate level of institutional racism that plays out. There's no way around that, right? Now, specifically, what happens is this, okay? And I don't know everyone's, professional background. I don't know, I definitely experienced this in my life, okay? You go, you get your education, right? You do what they tell you you're supposed to do, okay? Now, when I was at Alliance University, that's not an all-black institution, okay? I was there with some of everybody, okay? Now, when we all graduated, okay, your classmates start comparing notes. So where are you going to go work at? Where are you going to go work at, right? I'm going over here, I'm going over there, right? In every industry, there are like levels of types of employers, right? In my line of work, we call them tiers. There's like tier 1 level employers, which are the top, other profession. They got all the resources. They have the ability to pay you the top level salaries and all that, right? That's tier 1. Tier 2 is kind of like in the middle. Tier 3 is like starting out. You're in the industry, but you're at the lower tier of everything, right? What happens to a lot of us is when we graduate with the same types of degrees that everyone else makes, right? Our employment prospects are typically in your tier 3, maybe tier 2, okay? What that commands is not even your average salary for wherever you're at. I'm just being honest. You can be in Florida. If you're working at a tier 3, whatever company in Florida, you're not making enough money to really make it there.
With a degree.
With a degree. That's the effect of institutional racism. To get to the point where you're a tier 1 organization, we might have all experienced this. You interview for that tier 1 job, right? Oh, we think you got the education, but you need a little bit more experience. You need a little bit more of this. You need a little bit more seasoning. A lot of times what ends up happening is you end up middling in the tier 1, tier 3s, tier 2s for like 7 to 10 years. Meanwhile, your peers right out of college are getting them tier 2, tier 1 jobs. The difference in the amount of money is huge. And you talk about professional growth from that point, your raises are like, what, maybe 6% for whatever.
Bonuses.
Maybe your bonuses. But the point is, and this is the big effect of that, is that it takes a much longer period of time for someone that's been middling in the lower tiers of whatever the industry is to eventually rise to the rank of commanding enough money to afford a certain lifestyle wherever they're living at.
Why? Why does it take so much longer to get from tier 3 to 2 to 1?
The decision makers that decide who's getting that tier 1 job in many parts of the country don't look like us, flat out. So if there's a decision to be made about who to hire, right? And without a specific directive to really look for African-American male, African-American female, or whatever, there's a tendency to prefer other folks, right? Because that's natural level of comfortability. Bias.
Right.
The reality of it is that I call it systemic because it's all over the place. It's not like one here, one there. It's systemic across the board.
All industries.
All across the country, all different levels. You see that, right? So again, you play it to scale, amongst a whole population of people. It depresses everybody's growth as far as their incomes, right? So then the person that was working at a tier 1 organization right out of college, they're ready to buy a house.
Right.
Probably, nowadays with some of the salaries people are bringing in, they're ready to buy a house in their area before they're 30 years old, 35 years old. Many of us don't get to the point to where we're making enough money to afford to buy a house until we're in our 40s, to be honest.
Now, this is true. Do you notice that?
Okay.
Yeah, and 40s and 50s now.
Yeah.
Because one thing I'm seeing is that it takes, I would say, although we work the same amount of hours, we might receive this like just enough, as you said, underemployed, or we might be not making the same amount as our peers who don't look like us. One of the things that I've seen is that we tend, especially in San Diego, and I'll bring it back to San Diego, is that we live here, but we use a lot of debt.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So because what the main thing is this is to even get into the first tier, which is like you said tier 3. It requires us to have the education.
That is
right?
correct. Yep.
So when we now we have the education, now we are walking into a situation with a lot of debt, same as our peers, right? But then our pay down of that debt is a lot slower because of the income.
Because of the income.
Right.
Yep.
So in terms of trying to get to that point where we need to buy a home now, we have to actually become very, very creative or wait a longer time.
That is correct.
Right.
Yep.
So there is it not only does affect the wealth gap, it also affects things like our education.
Right. Now, there's a second component to this
Right.
as well. Okay. So the way, how should I put it? The way America is structured since the beginning, right, it was allowable for certain people to get the best of all outcomes when it came to everything in America, right? They went and classified, okay, it is perfectly okay that, blonde hair, blue-eyed folks, they get the best, okay? There's something wrong if that's not happening. I'll give you a prime example, okay? During the pandemic, the reason why we got stimulus wasn't because of the effects of COVID in the minority communities. It wasn't until the mainstream rank and file, blue-collared American, bleeding red, white, and blue was out in food lines, right? Saying what's going on out here, that they were compelled to do something. That's built into the fabric of America, that they are supposed to get the best of all. It's supposed to work out for them, okay? If it doesn't work out for you, oh, well, right? At the end of the day, we try, okay? Now, to that point, going down, so that's group 1, okay? They're supposed to get it. Group 2, and that's your more, and it's even classified by complexion in some cases, right? And then typically men, because it's a male, kind of, patriarchal society in a way, right? So men that are white are supposed to get the best of all outcomes. Women are an aggregate of that, right? You start paring down. Okay, what happened was, Asian men started getting the second set of opportunities, right? And the reason why they started getting the second set of opportunities, and it goes back into what is now starting to happen in San Diego, is they said, okay, the reason why we have to do this is not because of anything having to do with ethnicity. They use the fact that they are struggling with learning English, that's the barrier that we have to overcome. English, that they have a different culture and this and that and the third. So we have to set up something special for them. Okay, you get where I'm going? Same thing with the Latino population, right? You could actually write grants and get funding specifically targeting Latinos based off the fact, they have a language barrier, they have this, they have that. That is sufficient enough for people to say, you know what? We got to specifically invest in them. For African Americans, because we speak English, they were like, no, you're part of the mainstream population, right? You get the same help that your mainstream population gets. Well, institutional bias kicks in. What's supposed to work for everybody maybe it'll work for us 10% of the time. So you think of your interventions to help you get, further along in your employment, right? Yeah, you can go to, your regular mainstream career center, but without a specific directive to help you, you might get the help you're looking for 10% at a time. And that's factual. That's across the country.
Right.
So to answer your question, right, when you're talking about, the things you can do in the meantime to help, boost your prospects without specific directives to help us specifically, not as an aggregate.
That's true.
Not as a, you're part of people of color or you're part of this. No, specifically, I'm here to help African Americans, right? Without that, no, your chances of really getting the help you really need are slim. And and that's been the narrative for a long time since we've been in this country, to be honest.
And one of the things is this, because our guest last week, we talked about affirmative action, right? And one of the that I saw that as a not something that helped a lot of African Americans get into jobs where it was now forcing the hand of the people who were in control to actually diversify it, right? Now that was taken away, right? Based upon the fact that, number one, they say it was causing a lot of disparities of people who were intelligent to get into universities, because affirmative action was just across the board, but they used the educational part of it to take it away, and that affected jobs now, right? Now, one of the things that I would say, and I'll kind of like defer on what you said about with Asians and Latinos, is that a lot of people always say, well, how come they're able to be mobile in the job industry, right? One of the things that I've come to realize based upon looking at the economics of it is that there's strength in numbers, right?
Absolutely.
So the Latino, when you look at California as a microcosm, there is a force in California when it comes to Latinos, right? They don't affect a lot of things nationally,
Correct.
right? But when
Correct.
it comes to California, their agendas are pushed hard.
That is correct.
The Asian community, they still have their fears. I think. Now, I would say, I'm not an expert, but from talking with a lot of Asians, there is a tier of, say, like class, so say Chinese,
Yes.
Japanese, and
Yep.
then you have say
Korean.
Thailand, Korea.
We do the same thing.
Right, we do it,
We do
right?
the same thing,
So,
yep.
but one of the things that backs them a whole lot is ownership,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we look at, okay, well, one of the things that they push in their community a whole lot is ownership, and then they're also backed by a huge force of an Asian country called China.
That is correct.
Right.
Yep.
So that's why it's kind of
Yep.
like when things happen in their community, it's highlighted and then we pass laws. Boom.
Yep.
Right.
Which gets me to the most concerning part about
Right.
about what I wanted to talk about, right? So let's get past the ugly part.
Right.
Okay, that's there. Yeah, there is credence to that.
Right.
No, we're not going to just stick and stay there.
Right.
Okay. What's concerning to me is that understanding that's the lay of the land.
Right.
Okay. Logically, there's certain things you're going to have to do to move differently, right?
Right.
Okay. If I know there's danger outside, I'm not going to just walk right outside.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to act like there's something going on out there. A lot of times we act like there isn't. We act like, there's not something that we need to do extra than just,
Right.
do what my peers is doing over here. No, the reality of it is not an either or. It's both and pray. Okay, like you
Right.
got to do it all. Okay,
Right.
because the reality of it is that it's turbulent, but it is doable.
Right.
Okay, it's like I used before we got started. I used the analogy of this journey of what we're talking about to get to the end road of owning a home and living an American dream. For us, it's like being stuck in traffic on 8:05 in the morning. Okay.
Right.
Whereas everyone else appears to be going in the fast lane, whizzing right by you. It's not to say it's not possible.
Right.
Okay, let me just be very clear. You just have to maneuver differently than what you see everybody else doing. Is it inherently unfair that that's the case? Absolutely. But we're talking about moving the paradigm of systems that have been in place for, what are we in 2022? So we're talking, the last 400 or 500 years, if not
Right.
longer. That's not in the context of time.
Right.
I have from 20 till 65. Okay.
Yeah.
In the next 40 years of my working life, I'm being realistic. We're not going to see that paradigm shift in my 40 years of working.
Right.
So how to maneuver within the 40 years of my working is
Right.
is really, what I'm honing in on. Now, specifically, one of the things I encourage people to really do, okay, and we don't do this enough, is we stigmatize actually needing and seeking out help. And what I mean specifically is like, okay, name an athlete, a professional athlete that doesn't have an agent.
True.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because if an athlete didn't have an agent, what is the likelihood of them walking
They'll
in
be
and getting?
underpaid.
Thank you. Okay, so
They'll be underpaid.
so one of the things that I encourage people to do, because workforce development services have definitely advanced past the point of Cow Fresh and all that kind of stuff. Those programs still definitely exist. Okay,
Right.
but one of the complaints I always hear from people: why is it that I have to be down and out and poor in order to get help? No, specifically now. And this is really what I really want to hammer home to people is now you can go down to like the YMCA. Jackie Robinson YMCA is one of the satellite locations. You can go to and say, hey, I need someone to help guide my steps in my career journey. You can definitely go down there and enroll this program. It's not income based. You just have to be black. You go down there and say, hey, I need help to grow my career.
Y'all listening to this?
Okay, that's all you got to do. Go right down to Jack Robinson YMCA and say, I need help. I want to enroll in the hire program. Okay, you can go to your career center, any career center, and say, look, I need help to grow my career. Right? I'm a real estate agent. I need to figure out how to make more money doing real estate. It is their job to figure out what it is you're supposed to do and how to grow your income from there.
And I'm so
That's
glad you
interesting.
said that
That's
because
very interesting.
we look at the house prices here in San Diego, and they're up there.
Oh, yeah.
And Clinton and I had this conversation, and let's say you're a married couple, at least one person in that household needs to make $100,000.
Yeah.
Ideally,
Yeah.
just to afford a home here. I'm not even going to single family or condo, but to purchase a home here, at least one person needs to make at least $100,000.
Yeah, if you got a family, you need to make about, what, $120,000?
Yeah, 140.
140,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Combined income
yeah,
of at least
yeah,
$140,000, $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
Which is good income.
Yeah,
But to purchase a home here in San Diego that's at least what you need.
that is correct.
And so my whole thing has always been is for those individual and families that Clinton and I talk to that want to become homeowners, but they just do not have the income enough. They have the desire, but it's like, I want to buy this house in East Lake. I want to buy a house in Del Cerro. I want to buy a house in wherever, Oceanside. It's like, I look at their income, I'm like, I can't tell them you don't qualify. I'll just say, based upon your income, this is how much you qualify for. Clinton's job is, okay, within that qualification range, where are the houses that cost that much? And usually there's not any.
Yeah.
And so our thing is, where do we send people who want to make that change in the next year to 2 years to increase their income?
Right. So the hire program is one. And that's because you're specifically going to get help because you are African American and Black, right? There's no income limits and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's one. I also encourage people.
Is there an age limit?
You need to be between. That's a good question. You need to be between the ages of 16 to 26 in this go round.
Okay,
right? Which is important because again, if people that are over that age bracket show up and say, I need this, right? Because this is like year one.
And that's what we get. That we get people over that age.
Okay. So if people are older, but they still want that, still go and say, hey, I want this.
Yeah, I would
right?
encourage that. I would definitely.
It doesn't
encourage
cost
that.
you anything, but what'll happen is they'll collect that data, and then when the re-up happens to invest in this program, they'll expand that. But the reason why they settled on an age group is because 30,000 feet in the air, right? They're looking at numbers, and they say this is the age demographic that has the most issues, right? So let's settle here. That's a guess from 30,000 feet in the air. They don't know. Once you get into it and you start getting, flooded with other individuals that also need the help, they're definitely going to be able to adjust that criteria, right? So, but the reality of it is, though, is that everyone can do, there's three things I encourage people to do, right? One of the things is there's free help that is very similar to the hire program for everybody, right? But you have to lock in to what it is that is the target at the end of the day. You brought up a good point. To afford a home in San Diego, someone needs to make at least $70,000 a year. If you're a dual family income, you need to make about 140. Some estimates they're about like 135 or something like that. What that translates into in real numbers is somebody in the house or both people in the house need to make $30 an hour and up. That's the bottom line. Okay.
Well, at least have a master's, bachelor's or master's.
Right.
Both people in there.
Whatever degree you got, somebody in there needs to be making $30-some an hour and up. Okay, point blank, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, you're talking about middling, in between, like making, I'm employed, I'm making 20, 25. That's not it no more. The bar is raised now. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to understand too, is the business aspect of whatever we're doing, right? So, like, I'll take myself, for instance. For years, I was raised, I went to St. Stephen's Christian School, and how that orientated me about my approach to the world in general, it was more about, how I can impact, society in a positive way, right? The business part, I was raised to believe God's going to supply all my needs, right? It's just, as long as I'm walking into purpose, it's going to work out, which is true. In addition to that, though, God has also put people in place to actually guide you in the right direction.
Right.
and you got to go and you got to seek those folks out and listen to their advice.
Right.
And here's the advice that a lot of people will tell you, okay? One is that, and they were saying this when I was in high school in the 90s, right? Give you an idea how old I am. But in the 90s.
I was in high school in the 90s.
Okay, I'll say we're all okay.
I graduated on the internet.
Only for a year.
He said only for a year. Okay, now I was in high school the 90s, right? In the 90s, they were saying that the notion of you retiring from a job is gone, okay? That you're probably
That's very true.
You're probably going to change careers maybe at that time they were saying 3 or 4 times before you retire, right? I'm going to be honest. For me in my life, I've probably changed. I've been fortunate. I've changed jobs 6 times. 6 times. Not because I got fired or underperformed or anything, okay? That's a whole different set of circumstances. No, it was about me taking ownership of progressing my income level, right? Because what happens with us is, you know, we get the education. We're good at what we do. You get to a certain point to where you hit that glass ceiling, right? The question is, what's the next move? How do you recognize what's the glass ceiling, right? How do you even know? You're paying all of your attention and passion and energy into what you're doing.
Right.
You're the athlete. You're paying 100% of your attention to be the best ball player you can be, right? You need someone that's removed from the situation, that's not emotionally attached to the environment that you're in, to tell you, hey, man, it's time to, it's time to look at these numbers, and you need to make your next move. If they're not willing to move on this number right here, you need to go over here.
True. Now, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've heard that before. Now, one of the things is that because when people go for interviews, especially people, African Americans, we tend to get offered amount, and we tend to we tend to think that we have to accept it and not negotiate it.
Right. You get what you negotiate.
Right.
You get what you negotiate.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, and one of the things is that a lot of us tend to think, okay, well, I don't want to lose this job, so let me accept it and maybe later on.
That is correct. Yep.
With hiring the workforce, the organization you work with, when someone comes to you, is there an opportunity for them to get an understanding of how much jobs should actually pay based upon, number one, entry level? So say entering, and everybody else is getting paid average in the company, say 45, 60, right? And you're getting offered, say, 40 or 35. All right, is there a scale or something or a mentor that can tell them, hey, you should negotiate yours? Because when you get that offer letter, you should negotiate your salary and say, okay, well, I'll take this amount. And how do you do that?
Good question. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's that agent.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. It's a very good question. So I'll give you even one step further, right? Let's just say you're at the very start of your career.
Right.
Where you haven't really gone down the journey of really specializing yourself yet, right? One of the things that we've done is one of the reasons why I decided to work at the Workforce Partnership is they really leading the country in this regard, where we're guiding people towards what they call priority growth sectors, right? In San Diego, there are 7 industry growth opportunities that offer right out the gate. We're talking what they call livable wage. Now, livable wage is a sliding calculator. It depends upon what your family size is and everything like that. But for a single person, livable wages is like $28 an hour. Remember what the target is. The target is about 30, right? 30, a little bit more. So if an organization specializes themselves in really getting people into those types of careers really early, we're talking, some, depending upon the industry, you can get those like within 2 years of being out of high school, right? So think of the time calculation we're talking about. You're out of high school at 18, maybe 17, 18, 19 years old. Within 2 years with no college debt, you're at that $28 to $30 an hour magical number early with growth potential, even on average, 6% a year for raises and all that. Yeah, you're actually offsetting inflation. So you're beating the curve in that regard, right? But to really specifically answer your question, it's layered. It's one is understanding that you have specific and unique barriers that need to be addressed. There's no fault of your own. You did not set the environment. You inherited the environment.
Right.
Acknowledge that. Don't move like there's nothing going on. Don't move like you're not in traffic.
Right.
You are in traffic. You're going to have to make some additional maneuvers that other people are not going to have to move. It's okay.
Who helps you with that? Who helps you with that?
Me personally?
Yeah, you talking about there's maneuvers that you're going to have to make,
Yeah.
and there's some barriers.
Right.
Who helps you overcome those barriers?
So, okay, use an analogy of a professional athlete. It's your agent. I encourage everyone to have some type of financial advisor as well. You know, those types of things.
Who's our
right?
Google Map?
Okay. So specifically for people, you know, in the African American community to scale, right? I encourage people to go to the higher program. That's one. Again, YMCA, any of the career centers will enroll you in that. Also, for everyone in general, not just for African Americans, we have at the Workforce Partnership Sector Initiative programs, right, that are specifically designed to get you into those priority growth sectors. There's 7. There's information technology. There's construction and utilities. There's human-centered development. There's biotech. There's 7 different industries. Yeah. So, and this is born out of research. This is not like, oh, we like these folks and no. This is out of years and years and years of quantitative research about specifically San Diego. They're not talking about nationwide or anything. This is all centered around San Diego. Okay, so you're getting very targeted and specific help with huge leverage partnerships with some of the biggest companies in San Diego. So I give you a prime example, right? If you were to, let's say, go into a specific program like our a career construction jumpstart program, right? That program centers around the electrical engineering trade, right? If you just were to walk in, okay, and just try to do that without any help, what's the rate of success?
0 or 1%.
We're talking like 3%.
Right.
Okay.
3%, okay? No fault of your own. You're a smart person. You're very capable. You're doing all the steps, but the rate of success is 3%, okay? Now, that particular profession, with the Career Construction Jumpstart program, you actually get into the apprenticeship program, which gets you into the union, which gets you into the profession, commanding $30 some odd dollars a year. And here's the magic number. With 0 college debt, ladies and gentlemen, you're making that kind of money, and you're really young. You are making, some folks that we've had in that program are making 6 figures within the 2 to 3 years, okay? So, and there's and the reason why it's a growth sector is because there's a lot of competition as far as companies. So when you're talking about moving up your earning potential, let's say you're working at company A and you've kind of risen to the height of what you can achieve there, and they're just not willing to pay you more. Well, if you meet, if you're doing what you're supposed to do at your job, you're performing, you're doing your thing or whatever. If you don't want me, there's 8 other companies that are willing to hire me for what I'm asking for, right? So you can either lose my talent or you can continue to have me here. That's sometimes the leverage you have to play in order to get the number that you want, in order to effectively negotiate.
Right.
The other thing is that you get shared labor market information. That's something that we don't do at work, is we don't talk about what Joe is making over here across the way.
Right, exactly.
We don't talk about
we don't.
that. We think we're all making the same thing, and we're not.
We're not,
okay?
exactly.
We're all probably doing similar jobs, if not the same job. But yeah, this dude over here is making $15,000, $20,000 more than you are, right? How would you know that? You wouldn't know that unless you talk to somebody that's removed outside of the information, and can tell you, hey, man, you're underpaying yourself. You might need to, in order to get that job, and you're talking about an additional maneuver, instead of, just waiting for your boss to decide to pay you, you might need to go and invest in yourself and get this professional credential that adds a little bit of flavor to your already existing credentials, and then you get that bump up.
And that's it.
You may need to do that.
Yeah, because let's use sports as an analogy. I'm a big basketball fan, and someone's already has a good jump shot, but they're not commanding. They're becoming a free agent soon. Next season, what could I do to increase? Okay, you have a good jump shot, but if you learn how to play defense real good. If you become a really good defender,
right,
then that will increase your free agency to commanding $5 million a year to 15.
Exactly.
So, but you have a coach.
You have someone
an
there,
agent,
exactly,
that can help. That can tell you that,
right? And
because you're in it, and
right.
it's harder for you to see.
Exactly,
it.
and you're loyal. You're looking at just doing a good job. That's what typically people are.
Right.
Job
And
security.
what's unique is this. Is I want to just lay this out. It's traditionally what happens is we go to seek help, we got to wait in line, and we might not get seen at all.
Right.
That's why it is so important that we have specific, targeted. It's my job to look for you and you.
Right.
Okay, I'm not looking for someone else. I'm looking for you and you. I'm trying to find you. Okay, whenever you come in. I got to talk to you because that's my job. When it's someone's job to do that, they don't want to get fired.
Right.
They want to make sure they do the best job they can for you.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I mean. And it's free. It's
Right.
free 99. You go in there and you say, hey, I want to enroll in a hire program. What do I need to do? You sign a form, you know what I'm saying? And at the very least, you get that. And that's worth its weight in gold. What concerns me is exactly what you're saying, right? Let's say, use your analogy. I come to you and I say, hey, you're in the game because you are working, right? You're in the game. But in order for you to get more money, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Nah, man, I ain't finna do that. What do you mean? Then what are you doing?
That's
right?
a cultural problem.
Exact. And that's because
Right.
what we attach to you saying, I need help, what you trying to say? I don't know what I'm doing?
Right. And I wanted to ask you this question next. It was that we hear stories about people going into jobs and accepting less. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we hear it a lot in our community. We go into a job and we accept less, and we put in a lot more so that we can get that opportunity when it comes.
Right.
Is that something that we sit with? Is that something that we should say that we should make that very common in our community?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Because one of the things is this, and why I say that is because I've come to believe that we carry the same value as any employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have to work harder than somebody else who doesn't look like us to get paid the same.
Okay, see, now you started off with an interesting statement and then you
Right.
okay, look, the reality of the situation
Right.
is, going back, this is why I started the conversation off with the ugly part. The ugly part is we are going to have to do more and maneuver differently in order to get with somebody that just walks in and gets. We're going to just have to do it differently. Okay. Now, part of the doing it differently to answer your scenario.
Right.
In order to negotiate effectively, you got to have leverage.
Right.
You can't walk in. There's a business to everything we're doing.
Right.
You cannot enter into employment and not think it's not a business transaction. So let me give you an example. Okay.
Right.
Let's say you really want to work at company A or whatever, right? Okay, cool. For whatever reason, right? You can't be so thirsty just to get a job that you don't do your extra work to make sure that there's not an option B, there's an option C, and an option D.
Right.
Okay. It requires some more work. Yes, it does. However, though, when you're
It
sitting,
requires some more work for who? For everybody or just us?
everybody,
Right.
but especially for us, because what happens is this: you accept that lesser job, believing that you're going to move up.
Right.
You're not. What happens is you may move up a little incrementally, maybe, 50 cents, $1 here or whatever.
Right.
But if you started solo, let's say you started at like $18 an hour, $20 an hour, the number you need to be getting to as soon as possible is 30. With inflation, that number is going to increase. So every year that goes by, you're moving further and further away from that target. But your catch up is like what? Maybe 6% if we liked you a lot, right? At 6%,
Yeah.
at $20 an hour, you're
Yeah.
not catching 30 very fast.
And I get what you're saying. I get it because that's the reality of things. It's just a tough mental breakthrough. Like that's tough mentally for a lot of people to accept that.
That is true.
Now
Now,
you're saying that's the bad part.
that's the bad part is that, because again, the move should be when you're job searching, first of all, I don't recommend people to just do it by themselves without any help. I've worked with, in my career, people from, let's say, the very, most down and out, formerly incarcerated, new incoming Americans, refugee populations, youth populations, so on and so forth, right? So I've seen all that, and then I've seen the top of it, right? And the difference is this, is that inherently, when you start from the bottom, essentially, right, you're first generation college graduate, you're a new immigrant to the country. You formerly had some things go left in your life and you served some time in prison or something like that, right? There's this mental conditioning that I need to be grateful for anything that I get, okay? That's the mental
Yeah.
trip there. The
But
reality.
where do you think that comes from, though? Because we're looking at, and I know I hate going there, but we're looking at us being treated like that for generations.
True.
Generations and generations,
True.
right?
Yep.
And now it's come to where, because at the same time too, where's that going to actually change? Now we're talking maybe the mentality, and that's something we can't control of everyone, but when are we going to be able to actually be paid on an equal level based upon output?
Well, it's labor markets. Okay,
Right.
so here's the thing. First of all, that'll never happen. You're never going to get equal to your level unless you own the business. And even then,
Right.
it's a little tough, right? But the exchange is, okay, the saying is the American worker today is more productive than has ever been in the history of humanity, right? Meaning that your labor, your talent, your ability yields way more than it ever has. Okay, so basically, let's say you make sandwiches at Subway, right? Okay, what you do there makes the owner of that Subway infinitely more money than you get paid. Okay, it's a lot more. Okay,
Right.
Now, what we're talking about is what that owner is willing to pay you to make sandwiches. Okay, versus what the split of the whole entire revenue is. Like the split of the revenue. What's my share of the revenue? So on and so forth. Right now, here's the thing about leverage. If you are the mindset of the only thing you have to look forward to by the grace of God is a job at Subway, and I need to be grateful for that.
Right.
You have walked into the business transaction of employment with no leg to stand on.
Gotcha. So now that's
Okay.
yeah. So go ahead, because I have a question.
So what I
question.
explain to people is okay, if you go with the right, attitude and the right, spirit about you, and you go seek help, what's going to happen and what's going to translate into is that one job offer that you struggle to get by yourself is going to essentially be like 4 or 5. So now instead of saying, "Oh, I'm grateful for this one job offer,"
Right.
you're balancing 5. Okay, so
Right.
then Subway says, "I'm going to pay you $12 an hour." Immediately, you're going to go, "Well, wait a minute. Circuit City, not even Circuit City, Target is paying me what, $18 an hour." You'll do the math for yourself.
Right.
But the work is creating that situation where you have some leverage, right?
Right.
Let's say you're talking about within the same profession. Let's say, I'm a counselor, right? Okay. I'm working at a school, okay? I've risen to the point at that position that unless I become the principal, there's nowhere else for me to go, right? There's just nowhere. I've reached the glass ceiling, okay? It comes time to renegotiate my contract. I've done no work to have any other option but to continue to work here, okay? You're sitting next to whoever is responsible for making those decisions and how much you get paid. They know you've done no work. Who has the leverage in that negotiation?
Personal hiding.
Yeah, the person that decides your income, your
Right.
pay.
But you did nothing wrong. You worked hard.
You did your job.
You did
Right.
your job. That's all you did.
You didn't create leverage.
Thank you. And who's going to create leverage for you?
You are so focused in doing your job,
Thank you.
you don't know how to create leverage.
Thank you.
So
Yep.
you go to an organization like yours.
That is correct.
Hey, how do I create leverage so when this
Gotcha.
time comes, I can negotiate a higher salary?
And don't get emotional about what they might tell you. They might tell you, hey, this profession in this city is not growing for you like that.
Right.
You may need to switch and do something else. They may even say, you know what, I know you went to Howard University and got a master's degree, but from what we see, people that also attach this, get the better jump shot, they get more money. Let's go and enroll you and get this better jump shot.
Gotcha.
Your attitude should be, let's go, right? But our attitude right now is not. We get offended. Why I got to do that?
Right.
It is what it is. Okay. At the end of the
Right.
day, you're moving in traffic.
Yeah.
And you got.
So I can understand. So you all
Yeah.
have created a way, and you all kind of looked at things and took reality and created a system, right?
Here's what it is. Okay. Specifically for African Americans, right? We are talking about you starting the journey.
Right.
Disproportionate is way too many of us are still unemployed and underemployed. We're
Right.
not even. about career growth yet.
Right.
We're not even in careers. We are
Right.
just on basic jobs if
Right.
we're employed. Okay.
Right, pretty much.
So that I put on I put out a challenge out there, and some people felt a certain type of way about it. But no, I mean what I say. It's like, look, there's no reason right now in San Diego that just looking at just sheer, this main amount of people, this amount of openings, there's no reason why that we as a people should be making less than about $20 an hour. Period. That should be the bar.
So
That
what's
should be the bar
challenge?
for us.
Challenge is $20 an hour.
Well, that's the initial start. Really, the challenge is 30 because we're trying to get people in homes and all that.
Right.
Like, mind you, 30 is $62,000 a year.
I understand. But going back to something else I said too, that's the average. That's not top of the market. We're
Right.
not top of them. We're not up here yet. That's average.
So we have to go through the system, the levels. We got to get
Right.
to, so.
But to get average would suggest that that's what. No, that's
But if
not.
two of you making $62,000 a year,
Thank you. And there's no, and in my mind, there's no reason why that can't happen. But let's
Right.
start with 20 first. Let's start with $20 an hour. That's the challenge. There's no reason why people that are connected to us and our families, that go to our churches, that we interface with every day, that hang out with us and go and eat dinner with us and ain't got no money and nothing like that. The conversation should be, hey man, what's going on? We should be up here, $20 an hour, okay? Not, no disrespect to where people are starting from, but it should be you may start there, but there needs to be going out getting that jump shot so you're getting at least $20 an hour.
and that's
Okay.
and that's the key
Right.
is getting people into the right careers.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
and leveraging their abilities to create growth for themselves.
And here's what
because
concerns me too. Well, here's one thing I want to say too, and this is why I really want to come across with that kind of energy with this conversation is because it's not aspirational. Okay, athlete analogy, right? If I tell you you need to go out here and get a better jump shot, I need to be seeing you in the gym getting a better jump shot. I don't need to be seeing you outside in the club or whatever. Like we just won a championship.
Right.
We're trying to get our dollars up right now. Okay, we're in contract negotiations. Okay, we haven't made it yet. You acting like we made it. We're not on vacation. We need to be in the gym getting our money up, right? But right now, looking at it, we're not experiencing that energy. What we're looking at is it's not possible. They had it out for me.
Right.
No, there's always going to be a level of contention.
Right.
There's always going to be. It's not going to zoom in our life.
Right.
Not in our lifetime.
Right.
Maybe in my kid's lifetime. Maybe, but
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, and we can't talk about it because
Yeah.
we got to live in. We got to focus on what we have
gotta go get
right
it.
now,
Yep.
right? Because I mean, too much times we've been talking about past and what the future, but we're not looking at it right now. And I get it where you're coming from now. It's because we look in the fact that this is where we're at. And this is where we need to be, and this is what we need to start doing now.
yeah.
right?
Let me say this too, because I don't want to be insensitive. It's not to say that there isn't barriers. Of
Right.
course there are, but for every barrier that we can come up with, we can spend 5 hours talking about barriers.
Right.
Trust me, there are viable solutions to help you overcome those barriers. What you got to bring to the table is the energy that I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
So there's the ugly we talked about, which is outside forces that you can't control.
Correct.
There's the bad that you talked about of inside within yourself that you can control, but usually we go in the wrong direction. I ain't doing that direction.
Right.
And the good part of this is
There's definitely resources and opportunities for you out there. The higher program, again, your best outlet to get involved in that program is I recommend the Jackie Robinson YMCA. I don't know the address right off the top of my head, but Jackie Robinson YMCA.
off of the 805 on
Off of the
Euclid,
805 on Euclid,
Imperial.
off of the Imperial.
Get off and make a right.
There's 6 career centers spread throughout the county of San Diego that are now in transition to being taken over by San Diego Workforce Partnership. Come July 1, I encourage everyone to walk in them doors and say, I need to get into the higher program. They are looking specifically, and this is the first time you ever heard this, they are looking specifically to go and target the African American community.
I have the address for Jackie Robinson YMCA. 151 YMCA Way.
Fantastic.
San Diego, California.
Nice.
92114.
Right? And then on top of that, if that's not your flavor, again, you go to your career centers or even some of your community colleges now, they have what they call sector initiative programs, right? That, directly, remember I was telling you about the 7 growth industries in San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
They have specific programming that's tailored to get you plugged into those.
Now I have a quick question because we got like 2 minutes left. Quick question: how do you find one's career that fits that individual?
Very good question. And something that you said before, right? It's about, finding your purpose within, God first, right? But then right along with that, for folks that are trying to figure out what it is they want to do, again, your career centers or your community colleges have what's called different career assessment tests. One they like to use is a RISIC test. It's more like personality based and stuff like that.
Okay.
Whichever one you want to use. There's RISIC. There's a few others. There's the old one, something out of CalWorks or something like that. But yeah, if that's something that you're legitimately, wondering and struggling with, that's a good starting point.
Does that cost you money?
No, it's free. All free. Everything I just mentioned is 100% free. You can pay if you want to. I'll take donations.
So you can go. So you could go to San Diego Workforce Partnership headquarters at 9246 Lightwave Avenue, Suite 210, and then there's also the LDS Employment Resource Center at 4722 Mercury Street, and then the Metro Career Center at 4389 Imperial
Right
Avenue.
next to Home Depot.
Right next to the Home Depot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Last question. So what would you say based upon, is it like an employment coach or like that you find these organizations are doing now? Or is it like motivation or what? Like,
It's all that. I mean, technically, within the realm of social services, they call them career navigators and coaches and stuff like that. But I like the word agent. Because it professionalizes you and the whole interaction a lot better, right? And it makes you feel better. You don't feel a certain type of way when I'm going to go see my agent.
Right.
You don't feel a certain type of way you go see your financial advisor.
No.
Okay. So same thing. It's like you're getting financial coaching here, you're getting career coaching here, right? The two mesh, hopefully you'll get to the point to where you're able to buy a house and you're not 50.
And and also live some sort of semblance of a quality life, meaning you can vacation from time to time.
Yeah.
You can get your kids involved in extracurricular activities.
Yeah. You're not robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
You're not doing that.
You're living a quality of life, which is what majority of people want.
Right.
And so we need that support when we get into the battle of, because one thing I've seen is that when we do it on our own, and I see people in our community do that, especially men, they get denied multiple times.
That is correct.
Stop.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, they quit. They give up.
Right. So it's kind of like, and then that's where they're no longer unemployed. They're just not even in the
They're
system.
not even engaged no more.
So if they want to, if those who are listening want to get in contact with you or your organization, how can they best do that?
Well, the best way is, and I'm actually going to post this, is, if you follow me on Facebook, right, I will definitely be posting everything I just mentioned. And nowadays, it's as simple as, you can do it on your phone.
Where's your Facebook so they can follow
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry. My Facebook. What's my Facebook page? Do I have a URL? Was it Lamar Jackson on Facebook or something?
Just look up Lamar Jackson at Facebook.
No, don't do that. There's a lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. What's your tag or whatever?
I don't know. I wouldn't prepared to do all that.
Trust me.
Just look Lamar Jackson up on Instagram, Facebook.
But yes,
Find William. I'll tag me on there, right? That whole thing. But yeah, no, there's but on my page, one of the things I am going to do is, nowadays, it's as simple as, I could be sitting here and let's say, the flyer or whatever is up there. I can scan the QRC code right there and enroll right on my phone. You ain't got to get out of your pajamas or nothing. It's that easy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things the pandemic did bring along is the allowance of people to do services remotely. So it's that easy. You talking about you can get the better jump shot and not even have to leave your bedroom. Okay.
Listen, I like that. Get a better jump shot without leaving your bedroom. Get
free.
the job you want without leaving your bedroom.
Okay.
Well, my only disappointment is we're two minutes past our time for the show because, we enjoy the convo. And this was a combination of last week's show. This week's show was a combination to say there are issues out there when it comes to black employment, but there are solutions. You are the solution. You have to navigate it, but since you don't know how to do it, most people don't know how to do it themselves. Go to a professional agent, career agent, that can help you do that. Thanks, Lamar.
Thanks, Lamar.
Amen. All right, thank you.
We'll see you guys same time, same